Hey guys, tonight we're slipping through a velvet curtain and into a dim candlelit chamber where beauty flickers faintly on a rippling sheet of hammered copper. You lean closer, squinting at your warped reflection. Is that a freckle? A smudge? A wrinkle? Hard to tell, because you're using a mirror that looks like it's been trampled by a donkey and polished with regret. Welcome to the beauty standards of the Middle Ages. Spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing bedtime circles across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in a stone-walled castle, air thick with damp herbs and smoke. You tug a tapestry aside and slip into a private sola, essentially the medieval version of a beauty studio, if the beauty studio had no plumbing and smelled faintly of goat. On the table, a bowl of rainwater, a stick of ground chalk, and the prized possession, a polished copper mirror. Not exactly Sephora, but it's all you've got. Copper mirrors distort and darken your features, blurring blemishes and casting your skin in an unreal softness. It's no accident. In fact, many noble women prefer it that way, because the less real their beauty looks, the better. Think, filtered selfies, medieval edition. What's fashionable in this dim reflection? Pale, almost ghostly skin. Smooth, poreless cheeks. Large, expressionless eyes. Eyebrows so faint they might as well be painted on. And all of it framed by a forehead that could double as a billboard. Now imagine being told this is the pinnacle of beauty, and you're looking at yourself in a metal funhouse plate. Your reflection doesn't just lie. It rewrites your self-worth. It's easy to mock. But then again, how different is that from a 2025 beauty app smoothing your face like warm butter? The pressure to conform begins young. Daughters of nobles are trained to use face cloths soaked in vinegar and rose water, gently dabbing away sins like sunlight exposure and, heaven forbid, a natural glow. You, eager to impress, smear homemade cream across your cheeks. It's made from egg whites, powdered pearls, and honey. The goal? That candlelit gleam, like you've been carved from alabaster and kissed by a ghost. And it's not just for the girls. Young men, too, spend hours styling their shoulder-length hair, curling the ends with heated tongs and adding a dash of perfumed oil. The goal? A delicate balance between rugged and romantic, like a knight who could slay a dragon and write a sonnet about your ankles. Mainstream historians agree that the court of Eleanor of Aquitaine helped codify some of these standards, especially among the elite. Her court was legendary for its poetry, pageantry, and passion for aesthetics. But here's the thing. Historians still argue whether these standards trickled down to the common folk or stayed locked inside aristocratic bubbles. Meanwhile, deep in the archives of fringe weirdness, there's a surviving beauty tip from a 14th century manuscript that suggests smearing your cheeks with dove droppings. Yes, bird poop. Supposedly, it softened the skin. You try not to think too hard about where this discovery originated. Maybe someone just had a pigeon problem and a little too much imagination. As the flicker of the candle weakens, you're forced to admit something darker. This entire ritual, these powdered concoctions and warped mirrors, all reinforce the same brutal lesson. Your natural self isn't enough. You're too tan, too blotchy, too real. The beauty standard is an illusion, literally forged in metal and fantasy. But if everyone else buys into it, can you afford not to? You sigh, glance again at your copper reflection. Maybe you're imagining it, but your skin already looks a little smoother. Maybe if you tilt your head just so, you almost meet the impossible halfway. But this is just the beginning. Wait until they ask you to raise your hairline with tweezers and dye your freckles with crushed lily root. Compared to what's coming, the copper mirror is merciful. You open a shutter just a crack and flinch as sunlight kisses your skin. A single shaft of gold light spills into the room like a warning. You snap the wooden slats closed again. That was close, too close. Because in your world, sunlight isn't just dangerous for your health. It's a full-on beauty saboteur. In medieval Europe, having a tan basically announces to the world that you're poor, or worse, that you work. Which, let's be honest, is a horrifying accusation in noble circles. Tan skin implies field labor, manual sweat, and possibly talking to people without titles. Yikes. So you strive for pallor. Not just pale, ethereal. Holy, the kind of paleness that suggests you've never lifted anything heavier than a goblet of wine. It's a ghostly aesthetic with a moral twist, too. In many circles, especially under the church's influence, whiteness equals purity. The whiter the skin, the closer to God, or at least, the further from temptation. And if your natural skin tone doesn't cooperate, time to cheat. You stir up a concoction of vinegar and white lead powder, a mix that gives your face the desirable bleached-out look and also slowly poisons you. Yay, glamour. This isn't just fashion. It's sacrifice. There's a strange irony here. The more lifeless you appear, the more alive you seem in the eyes of courtly suitors. A pallid face hints at fragility, mystery, delicacy. It says, I'm too dainty for farm work. Please fan me with a peacock feather and read me psalms. And the effort goes deeper than makeup. You might dab leech-infused water on your skin to thin your blood and drain your natural flush. If that sounds dramatic, don't worry. It's about to get more intense. You tug at your sleeves and adjust your wimple to make sure every inch of skin is covered. Exposed arms or necks. Risky. The sun can sneak in like a villain in a romance ballad. Parasols aren't a thing yet, so you rely on veils, long gloves, and prayer for shade. Mainstream historians trace this obsession back to ancient Rome, where aristocrats also prized whiteness as a class marker. But medieval Europe led on religious symbolism, light as divine, dark as earthly. However, historians still argue whether this ideal was enforced equally across all regions or if certain climates, like Italy or Moorish Spain, bred more flexible standards. Now, here's a quirky outlier for you. In one obscure herbal guide from the 13th century, there's a tip that suggests rubbing your skin with lily root and goat's milk to draw out the sun's kiss. The recipe warns against laughter during application because, supposedly, smiling would trap heat in your cheeks. So yes, even joy was a beauty hazard. In the wealthier courts, girls are practically raised in darkness. Young noble daughters often play indoors or in shaded cloisters, their skin monitored like fine parchment. You might be one of them, giggling behind a tapestry as someone smuggles you a pot of moon cream, a paste so pale, it's said to frighten dogs. But here's where the standard turns cruel. What if you're born with olive skin? Or if your family comes from a warmer region? The ideal doesn't bend to you. You're expected to bleach, blot, cover, and conceal. If your skin can't pass for sanctified, then clearly you're doing something wrong. You sit on a stone bench, cupping your face in your hands. The walls around you echo with beauty advice whispered from mother to daughter, maid to mistress, all looping back to the same exhausting message. Look paler, seem holier, never let the sun win. And you can't help but notice the hypocrisy. Many of the women enforcing these ideals were once young girls like you, tired of blending chalk with vinegar in cold rooms, tired of pretending not to miss the warmth on their skin. But now they pass the standard down, maybe because it's all they've known, maybe because surviving it feels like a badge of status. Or maybe because cruelty, when it's disguised as elegance, is easier to forgive. You watch as another young woman walks by, her skin impossibly white under layers of powder. Her eyes meet yours briefly, and for a second, you both know the truth. None of this is real. It's theater, ritual, a never-ending audition for acceptance in a world that demands you erase yourself to be noticed. So you close the shutter again. You pick up the damp cloth. You smear the vinegar onto your skin, and you keep going. You sit on the edge of your stool, peering into your copper mirror, but tonight the reflection bothers you more than usual. Your eyes drift upward to your forehead. It's just too short, not high enough, not noble enough, not spiritually enlightened enough. You sigh. You know what has to happen next. You reach for the tweezers. Yes, in this era of brutal beauty standards, your hairline is a battleground. The higher the forehead, the more refined the woman. Or so the logic goes. A broad, bald expanse above the brows is said to signal intelligence, poise, and a touch of saintliness. Apparently, The Virgin Mary herself is often depicted with a divine dome of forehead. You sadly are not. So you begin, one pluck at a time, just above the brows at first, then a little higher, and then higher still. Your skin reddens, your eyes water. You're halfway between prayer and profanity, but you keep going. You have to, because a low brow isn't just an insult, it's a disqualification. And it doesn't stop there. Some women shave their hairlines entirely, then soften the edge with soot to blur the stubble. Others apply poultices of vinegar and crushed walnut shell to permanently thin the follicles. A few go full method and singe the offending hairs with candle flames. Medieval beauty is not for the faint of scalp. This isn't just self-inflicted. Maids are often tasked with hairline maintenance. You lie back while someone with cold hands and a relentless sense of duty yanks strand from your face while humming a church hymn. Is that comforting? Somehow no. Mainstream records from the Burgundian court suggest this trend reached its peak in the late 15th century, when portraits of court ladies show massive foreheads and hairlines so far back, they look halfway to the crown of the skull. Art imitates life, or perhaps terrifies it. But historians still argue whether this was truly an aesthetic ideal or merely a visual exaggeration in portraiture meant to symbolize piety or social status. Did women really go that far with the tweezers? Or did artists play it up for symbolic effect? The debate continues. Your throbbing forehead votes very real. Meanwhile, down in the weird beauty lore vault, there's a recipe preserved from a convent in northern France claiming that rabbit urine mixed with alum, when dabbed daily onto the scalp, can halt hair regrowth and bless the brow. You know, in case you weren't suffering enough already. Of course, it's not just about what you remove, it's also about what you reveal. The high forehead must be balanced by soft, rounded temples and a smooth jawline. If your features are too sharp, too peasant, well, there are ways to soften that too. Clay masks, herbal steams, and in more extreme cases, facial bandaging to train the shape of the face. Think medieval contouring, but with cloth and a lot more discomfort. You catch yourself in the mirror again. Your forehead looks massive. Maybe too massive? No, don't backslide now. You try a little eyebrow fade, rubbing them gently with ash to make them appear thinner. A thin brow says control, restraint. The kind of woman who walks in silence and never sweats, even while wearing 5 layers of brocade. It's a delicate game, this balancing act. Too much hair, primitive. Too little, unsettling. You're constantly tuning your face like a lute that's slightly out of pitch. There's no finish line, only maintenance. Outside your chamber, laughter echoes faintly from the hall. You imagine other girls going through the same ordeal, plucking and shaving and softening into something they hope resembles elegance. You wonder how many of them also whisper to their mirrors, "Is it enough now?" And here's the bitter cherry on top. Even if you achieve the perfect forehead, it might still be met with judgment. Because for every admirer swooning over your heavenly brow, there's a bishop warning about the sin of vanity. The church wields guilt like a second blade. On one hand, it praises divine beauty. On the other, it condemns effort as temptation. You wrap a linen band around your forehead to soothe the sting. The skin is warm, tender, and still aching from the evening's labor. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Maybe pluck just a few more. Maybe soften the arch a bit. Maybe finally look like you belong. For now, you lie back against your pillow, the linen cool against your bruised pride. The candle flickers low. You close your eyes, already hearing the inner whisper, "Not quite enough." The box on your dressing table is small but lethal. Inside, your collection of powders, all whispering promises of perfection. You open it, and a soft puff of dust rises like a ghost. This is your secret weapon, the daily danger. Because tonight, you'll paint your face with poison. You dip your fingertips into the fine white powder. It's lead-based, mixed with a little vinegar and water to help it cling. It smells faintly metallic, like the underside of a sword hilt. You smooth it over your cheeks, forehead, yes, the freshly plucked one, and down the bridge of your nose. The result? Instant flawlessness. Your skin glows like bone in moonlight. You look perfect, and also slowly dying. Welcome to the medieval makeup routine. These powders are deadly by design. Lead carbonate was a favorite among the wealthy, used to blur blemishes and produce that coveted porcelain corpse glow. But over time, it causes skin to ulcerate, teeth to loosen, and hair to fall out. It's like wearing beauty and rot at the same time. The tragedy? Most women know. They hear the rumors, see the effects. But what choice do they have? You can either be seen as beautiful now or be forgotten later. So you dab a little more under your eyes. Just a bit. For radiance. The practice likely draws from Roman and Persian beauty influences, which filtered back into Europe through trade and conquest. But by the 14th and 15th centuries, the West had taken it to a new level. Weaponized glamour in a world where appearance often dictated survival. Historians still argue whether women truly understood the long-term consequences of these substances or if they accepted illness as a natural result of aging. Either way, when half your peers are coughing up blood by 30, the line between beauty and affliction blurs fast. You reach for a second powder, this one with a faint yellow tint. It's orpiment, an arsenic-based blend meant to warm the cheeks. You dust it lightly over the white base. The combination gives your skin a strange, luminous quality, somewhere between candlelight and fever. There's also a greenish concoction in the box, reserved for shadows around the eyes. Ground malachite, finely sifted, pressed with rose oil. Beautiful and a bit hallucinogenic if applied too heavily. One noblewoman from Aragon reportedly spoke to angels for 3 days after a little too much eyelid shimmer. You make a mental note to use sparingly. And let's not forget the fringe weirdness. A lesser-known remedy found in a Swiss herbal manuscript recommends grinding up dried mouse bones and mixing them with rose water for a brightening face tonic. You stare at your reflection and try not to wonder who thought. You know what this needs? Rodent calcium. The irony is that despite all this effort, the goal isn't to look made up. Not all. You're aiming for natural beauty. The kind that appears effortless but takes hours of secret preparation. Because if anyone suspects your face is artifice, you risk being labeled vain or, worse, deceptive. So you blend carefully, check for seams, and pray your skin doesn't betray you with peeling. The danger isn't just physical. Powder smudges. Rain is your enemy. Hugging someone? Risky. Dancing? Treacherous. A bead of sweat could streak your temple and expose the soft, real skin beneath. That would be humiliating. So you learn to move carefully, speak quietly, and never linger near open flames. Meanwhile, men at court walk by oblivious. Maybe they marvel at your smooth skin, your subtle glow, the way your cheeks catch the candlelight. They never guess that your beauty comes with symptoms. Fatigue, itchiness, the dull ache in your gums where your molars are beginning to loosen. And yet, you feel strangely powerful. There's something alchemical about transforming your face like this. Turning yourself into a vision. A spell. An illusion. You're part chemist, part actor, part martyr. All for the fleeting reward of being looked at like you matter. Outside, a storm brews. You pray the roof holds and the humidity doesn't undo your handiwork. You adjust your veil, making sure it hangs just so. Powder doesn't blend well with rain. As the bell tolls for evening prayers, you blow out the candle. The mirror catches one last flicker of your face, ghostly, radiant, and unreal. You lie back on your straw mattress, careful not to smudge the makeup against your linen. Your skin feels tight, like it's wearing a mask. But the mask is beautiful. And that means tonight at least, so are you. The bowl beside your bed holds water darkened by something slithering and alive. Leeches. You stare at them for a moment, watching their bodies undulate slowly, lazily, as if they know what's coming. You're not sick. You're not wounded. But you're about to let these little vampires suck blood from your face anyway. Because somewhere between horror and high fashion, you've learned a good blush starts with bloodletting. This is your nightly ritual now. Because in the beauty manuals whispered through the castles and convents, there's one unshakable belief. A faint, natural flush is the peak of grace. A face entirely pale suggests you're close to death, but just a hint of color on the cheeks or lips. That says vitality, fertility, all the soft, courtly illusions of feminine power. You dip a cloth into warm wine and place it gently on your neck to open the vessels. Then you coax a leech to your cheek. It latches on with revolting ease. Within moments, your skin prickles, your head goes light, and somewhere in the back of your mind you're asking, how did this become normal? Mainstream historians have documented this practice widely among medieval nobility, especially in France and England. Physicians, even the more educated ones, believe that removing excess blood balanced the humors and improved both health and appearance. Bloodletting was not only tolerated but encouraged, especially before major events like court dances or weddings. Because nothing says ready for romance like being slightly anemic. But historians still argue whether cosmetic bloodletting was truly effective in producing that desirable flush, or if it simply made women more faint and easy to manage. A bleak thought, but not out of place here. And of course, some methods went beyond leeches. One recipe you've tried, just once and regretted immediately, involved pricking your skin with a goose quill dipped in salt water, hoping to irritate the cheeks just enough to summon a natural bloom. The result? Redness, yes. Also, searing pain. You politely declined a second round. Then there's the stranger side of the blushing game. In an odd little scroll from a monastic herbarium, there's a beauty charm that instructs women to bury an apple under a full moon, dig it up after 7 days, and rub it across their cheeks while reciting a prayer to Saint Agnes. Allegedly, the blessed blush would last a fortnight and make your heart desirable to all men. You tried it. Nothing happened, except now you associate apples with disappointment. Back in your chamber, the leech swells fat and lazy, then drops into the bowl with a plop. You press a clean cloth to your cheek, watching the blood stain it like watercolor. It is kind of pretty, in a horrifying medical sort of way. The fashion for faintness doesn't stop with your cheeks. You notice it everywhere. The slow, deliberate walk women adopt to avoid sweating. The tendency to sigh during conversation, to lean on banisters, to fan oneself dramatically. All of it plays into the image, fragile, delicate, soft. A body barely tethered to the earth. A spirit too refined for labor or loud laughter. At banquets, you sip your wine slowly. No eating with gusto. Chew as if the food is a divine mystery. God forbid anyone sees your molars. You press your lips just enough to keep them pink. If needed, there's always crushed beet juice to touch them up. Just don't overdo it. You want flushed, not feral. But maintaining this illusion is exhausting. You're constantly towing a line. Too flushed, and you're accused of vanity. Too pale, and they whisper about consumption. Your entire appearance must dance in this narrow, impossible space where every detail is controlled, but none must appear to be. You lean over the basin and rinse your face gently, careful not to scrub too hard. There's a rawness now where the leech fed. The mirror shows a light crimson bloom across your cheek. You stare at it, wondering if anyone will notice. If they'll see it and think, she's healthy, she's lovely, she's winning. And yet, deep inside, there's a flicker of defiance. What if you didn't do this? What if you showed up pale, bare, unbothered? Would they laugh? Would they flinch? Or would they envy you for daring to break the spell? But that thought fades as quickly as it comes. Because in this world, beauty isn't optional. It's survival. You dab a little rose oil onto your neck, just in case someone comes close enough to smell. You wrap a linen cloth around your hair, let the oil sink into your skin, and sit quietly in the dark. Somewhere in the bowl, another leech slithers. Tomorrow, you'll need a touch more color. You open a wooden jar, its lid sticky with resin and mystery. The smell hits you first, a heady blend of herbs, warm oil, and something sharp, almost reptilian. You dip 2 fingers into the cream and spread it across your cheeks and forehead. The texture is velvety, but the ingredients? Deeply questionable, because tonight's beauty elixir contains viper fat. Yes, viper, as in snake. The belief goes that serpents, ever shedding and smooth-skinned, hold the secret to eternal youth. So, of course, someone thought, let's rub their rendered fat on our faces. And everyone else went, sounds legit. This serpent balm, is part of your evening skincare routine now. It also includes crushed almonds, lavender, beeswax, and sometimes a dash of saffron for warmth. Applied nightly, it's said to smooth wrinkles, fade blemishes, and restore a youthful glow to even the weariest noblewoman. The recipe is passed down like gospel in noble households, often adapted from ancient Roman formulas recorded by Pliny the Elder and revived during the early medieval apothecary boom. By the 14th century, it's not uncommon to find noble women with entire cabinets dedicated to strange salves, each one a whisper of hope in a world with no dermatologists. Historians still argue whether these concoctions were genuinely effective or just expensive placebos. Some say the rich oils may have offered minor hydration benefits. Others suggest the prestige of the ingredients, like fat of serpent or milk of unicorn, reed, goat, was more about flexing status than function. Either way, the placebo feels soft and luxurious. You rub the balm into your temples, letting the warmth melt it into your skin. The scent is oddly calming. Underneath the tang of snake, there's rose water and frankincense. It smells like an altar and a vanity table had a baby. Then there's the fringe advice. A lesser-known beauty tip found in a Venetian merchant's ledger recommends aging your cream by placing it in a tomb for 3 nights. The idea? Proximity to death enhances the balm's potency. You try not to think about who tested that theory or how. Probably best not to ask. Tonight, you add a new step, a face steam made from rosemary, marjoram, and dried rose petals. You drape a linen cloth over your head, lean over the bowl, and let the steam bathe your face. The pores open. The snake cream settles deeper. Your skin tingles like it's listening. Your maid watches nervously. She's seen your cheeks blister once from an overzealous clove and wormwood mask. You both pretend that didn't happen. In the dim candlelight, your reflection in the copper mirror gleams. The lines around your mouth are softened. The hollows of your cheeks blurred. Is it the balm or the belief? Doesn't matter. Tonight, you look fresher, worth the smell. But this pursuit of timelessness carries a darker undercurrent. You've heard the rumors. Older women losing social currency as their faces lose youth. Mothers-in-law mocked in whispered Latin. Duchesses passed over at court feasts. In a world where your power lives in your face, aging feels like erosion. So you slather, pat, massage. You lie still on the cool stone floor, letting the balm set while you recite prayers not for your soul, but for your skin. The paradox? Everyone knows you're doing this. The entire court smells faintly of almonds and snake fat, and yet no one speaks of it. Beauty is supposed to be effortless, even when it reeks of reptile and desperation. A knock at your chamber door interrupts the silence. A visiting lady from Aquitaine wants to borrow your miracle balm. You hesitate. This jar came from a traveling monk who only appears every 3rd spring. But in the end, you agree. Because in this game, generosity is currency too. As the door closes again, you glance back at your mirror. Your skin does look smoother. Luminous, almost. Maybe even young. The cream tingles a little now. Hopefully not in a bad way. You blow out the candle and lie back on your cot. Fingers still sticky. The faint musk of snake oil rising from your cheeks. Tomorrow, they'll ask what you're using. You'll smile mysteriously and say, just herbs. Because no one wants to hear the truth, that to stay beautiful in this world, you sometimes have to steal secrets from serpents. You stand before your wardrobe, eyeing the garment laid out like a silken bone trap. It's beautiful, yes, rose-colored satin, delicate embroidery at the bust, but your stomach clenches at the sight of it. Not because of the fabric, but because of what's stitched into the lining. Whalebone, lots of it. Tonight, you're getting laced into your corset. Of course, it isn't called that yet. The medieval term is stomacher or pair of bodies, depending on the region. But whatever the name, it's the same idea. Stiffened, cinched, and sculpted. Your torso becomes a battleground of pressure and posture. Breathing? Optional. Your maid begins tightening the laces. You grip the bedpost, already regretting your choice of dinner. With every pull, your ribs compress a little more. The pressure climbs, squeezing not just your waist, but your entire sense of self. This apparently is beauty. The goal? A narrow waist and a firm, upright silhouette that signals nobility. A soft belly suggests indulgence, sloth, even lust, unforgivable sins, both socially and spiritually. A disciplined figure, on the other hand, whispers of grace, piety, and the ability to stand through a 6-hour mass without collapsing. You glance in the mirror. Your torso is transformed. You look elegant, almost unearthly, like someone who never runs, sweats, or breathes too loudly. You can barely exhale, but you do look the part. Historically, the corset's full tyranny belongs more to the Renaissance and later centuries, but its earlier cousin, the stiffened bodice, absolutely ruled medieval fashion, especially from the 14th century onward. Mainstream historians point to Burgundian court influence, where long, elegant lines and tightly fitted gowns became status markers. But historians still argue whether tight lacing was widespread or a courtly exaggeration. Most surviving garments suggest some structure, but not all show the extreme constriction modern pop culture imagines. That said, you definitely don't feel like this is a casual look. This is a performance. There's a fringe tip in your court that says sniffing mint oil before getting laced can help suppress panic. You've tried it. It mostly just makes you associate mint with fear. Once you're fully bound in, the second layer comes, a gown made of silk and velvet so heavy, it could probably survive battle. You lift your arms carefully like a marionette as the maid positions the sleeves. They're long, draping, designed to sway elegantly as you walk, or rather, as you glide. Walking briskly in this outfit would be undignified, also impossible. Underneath all this, you're wearing a linen chemise, soft, thankfully, and hose that pull tight around your legs. Garters bite gently into your thighs. Nothing moves freely. Not your waist, not your hips, and certainly not your chest. Even your breath becomes a curated event. And here's the dark twist. People watch you breathe. They admire how still your shoulders stay, how quiet your inhales are. It's a show of control. Passionless, perfect composure. You start to understand why so many noble women faint at parties. It's not the drama. It's the oxygen deficit. You descend the stairs with the practiced grace of someone who's memorized where all the banisters are. Each step is measured. You can't afford a trip. Not with your midsection locked in a fabric exoskeleton. You reach the great hall, and already the glances begin. Not your face. No, those glances settle at your waist. They judge the slope of your back, the line from ribcage to hip. You smile faintly, resisting the urge to gasp. There's a knight across the hall who nods at you politely. He has no idea what it took for you to get here. He's probably wearing loose wool and eating a second roasted pigeon without restraint. You, meanwhile, are wondering if digestion is still an option. And here's a side note most people forget. These garments often trap heat. Between the layers of linen, wool, velvet, and tight-laced stomacher, your skin starts to bead with sweat. But you mustn't blot it. You mustn't fan yourself too hard. Ladies don't sweat. They glow, or shimmer, or some other word that means suffer silently in silence. Back in your chamber, hours later, your maid begins unlacing you. The moment the pressure releases, your lungs inflate like sails. You groan quietly. There's a faint red ring around your waist where the boning pressed in. You run a finger along the marks and smile faintly. It hurts, but it also means you looked right. You belonged. For now. Because tomorrow, someone else will show up with a slimmer waist. Or a newer silhouette. Or some fresh trend from Venice that makes your whole look feel last season. And you'll sigh, adjust, tighten, repeat. You lie back on the straw-filled mattress, arms spread, grateful for linen nightwear and soft breathing. Your ribs ache, but your reflection lingers in your mind. Tall, poised, untouchable. Beauty in your world is always just on the edge of pain. You drape the veil over your head, adjusting the folds until they settle just right across your cheeks. The fabric smells faintly of cloves and crushed rosemary. A scent as carefully curated as your powdered face. You're not just veiling for modesty or elegance. You're doing it to mask something. Because tonight, you didn't bathe. And frankly, neither did anyone else. Medieval hygiene is a complicated beast. Public bathhouses exist, yes, and bathing isn't unheard of. But the church keeps sending increasingly suspicious glances in their direction. Too much nudity, too much temptation. And for women, especially noble women, the message is clear. Cleanliness is less important than perceived purity. So instead of daily bathing, you veil. You perfume. You distract. The veil is more than just fabric. It's scented, semi-transparent armor. You've dabbed it with a mixture of rose oil, cinnamon, dried orange peel, and just a whisper of musk. When you walk, it trails the air behind you like a priest swinging a censer. The goal? Smell like virtue with a hint of mystery. And the veil, of course, comes with layers of meaning. In church, it signals humility. In court, it suggests elegance. And when pinned just so, with enough delicacy and scented finesse, it becomes the medieval version of contouring. You're not just hiding unwashed hair. You're elevating yourself into the realm of legend. Mainstream historians agree that veils and head coverings in medieval Europe served many overlapping purposes: religious, social, hygienic, and aesthetic. But historians still argue whether the perfume-saturated versions were a form of rebellion, elegance, or quiet desperation in a world where soap was scarce and baths were sinful. You lift the veil slightly to cool your face. Underneath, you're wearing a mixture of rice powder and dried lavender oil on your scalp. It keeps the hair somewhat fresh, or at least dry, and leaves a floral smell that distracts from the truth. You haven't washed your hair in over a week. But don't worry, you're not alone. Most noble women bathe only every few weeks unless they're ill, newly married, or preparing for a major feast. Instead, you rely on ritual. Veils, scented pins, dried flower sachets, and an endless rotation of herbal waters, thyme, sage, marjoram, all swirled together and applied behind the ears and under the arms with linen pads. And here's a strange one. A fringe belief out of Bavaria claims that rubbing your feet with garlic before bed draws the odors down through the body and out the soles. You tried it once. Your maid wouldn't stop side-eyeing your slippers for a week. The paradox is endless. You're expected to smell divine, look divine, and yet avoid the very acts, like bathing, that would make those things easier. So you layer instead. You wrap, you scent, you veil. Every morning, it's like building a castle of illusion, starting with your head. Tonight, your veil is sheer, embroidered with fine gold thread. It dances gently as you move, catching the firelight in little sparks. From a distance, you look ethereal. Up close, you probably smell like a sentient spice rack. But that's the goal. At the feast later, a young knight compliments your air of mystery. He doesn't know that under your veil you're sweating, itchy, and wondering if anyone else can smell the goat's milk hair mask you applied 3 nights ago. You just smile, shift the fabric slightly, and let the rose oil do its job. It's all a game of misdirection. They are watching your eyes, your hands, the graceful fall of the veil, while you're quietly calculating how many more days you can go before your next bath without raising eyebrows. 3, maybe 4 with extra jasmine sachets. But there's power in this performance. When your veil drapes just right and your scent hits at the right moment, people lean in. They listen more closely. They linger. You've turned your own discomfort into a lure. You've made mystery from misery. And that is a rare talent indeed. Back in your chamber, you carefully hang the veil over a wooden rack. It'll be aired overnight, gently brushed, and perfumed again tomorrow. You lie down on your cot and sigh. The air is thick with incense and lavender. You dream of cool water, but you'll settle for another day of clever deception. Because in a world where soap is sinful and sweat is shameful, beauty comes down to 3 things: timing, scent, and silk. You run your fingers through his curls. Not yours, his. The knight standing before the mirror is brushing his hair for the 3rd time this hour, and you're beginning to realize something strange about medieval beauty standards. They don't stop with women. Men, it turns out, are peacocking too. He adjusts the angle of his coif, a silken head wrap that keeps his freshly washed and very deliberately perfumed, hair from falling flat. His beard has been dusted with powdered iris root, and he just finished scrubbing his face with vinegar and egg whites. Why? Because tonight, he wants to shimmer. And shimmer he does. Male grooming in the medieval world is not the muddy, broadsword-swinging cliché most people picture. For noblemen, especially those at court, appearance is performance. Their skin must be clay. Their nails must be clean. Their hair must curl just so. And their garments, layers of velvet, fur, and gilded buttons designed to announce, yes, I'm wealthy enough to dress like a tapestry. Mainstream historians agree that male vanity was alive and well in the Middle Ages, particularly during the 14th and 15th centuries, when courtly love literature and knightly ideals placed a heavy emphasis on appearance. But historians still argue whether this grooming culture was widespread among men of all ranks or primarily a noble indulgence. The knight smooths his tunic and reaches for a tiny silver vial. Inside, a concoction of saffron, crushed bay leaves, and animal fat, essentially beard wax with a medieval twist. He warms it between his fingers and gently works it into the edges of his goatee. You can't help but smirk. He's more meticulous than you, and that's not unusual. Men at court often spend hours getting ready. Some bleach their beards with lye to achieve a golden tone that sparkles in candlelight. Others curl their mustache with hot irons or pin them into shape overnight. There are even records of knights using fish bladders as makeshift pore-tightening masks. You wish that last one were a joke. There's a particularly strange beauty fad floating around Burgundy right now. Men dousing their clothes in rose water and then standing near open flames to steam the scent into the fabric. One poor soul miscalculated and nearly set his tunic ablaze. Fashion hurts. And the colors. Oh, the colors. Courtly men wear crimson, cobalt, peacock green. Their hose come in mismatched shades to flaunt wealth. Dye is expensive, and personality. One leg might be bright blue, the other lemon yellow. It's not a mistake, it's style. You glance at your own muted gown and briefly consider stealing his tailor. But here's where it gets particularly absurd. Men are judged for beauty too. Their brows are shaped, their nails checked. Too rough, and you're seen as common. Too soft, and you're suspect. A knight must look romantic enough to compose poetry, yet strong enough to decapitate someone over a chess match. One fringe fashion text, likely written by an overambitious courtier, suggests that men should chew parsley to sweeten the breath before a duel. Because, obviously, nothing ruins a sword fight like halitosis. Even armor, you realize, is part of the peacocking. It's not just for protection. It gleams. It fits like a second skin. Helmets are engraved with family crests, and some wear silk-lined padding underneath for comfort. One nobleman you met last week had fur-trimmed greaves. Fine. On a leg guard. You sit back and watch the knight spritz a final mist of lavender water onto his wrists. He turns to you, all polished and powdered and proud. Do I look intimidating? He asks. You consider it. Terrifying, you reply. He grins, then swishes out of the room, his velvet cloak billowing behind him like a peacock's tail. You're left alone, blinking in the aftermath of his beauty tornado. Here's the thing. While women are suffocating in corsets and powder, men are also quietly suffering under their own standards. The demands are different, but they are there. They just come with a sword and a poem. And in a strange way, it comforts you. Because everyone, regardless of gender, is chasing some impossible ideal. Everyone's trying to survive the theater of medieval beauty. You adjust your veil, fluff your sleeves, and head toward the feast. As you pass the knight again in the corridor, you catch a whiff of rose, saffron, and just a touch of smoke. It's ridiculous, and honestly, kind of fabulous. You sit motionless, staring at the bolt of fabric laid out before you like it's an accusation. It's crimson velvet, the kind that whispers wealth with every ripple. But here's the catch. You're not technically allowed to wear it. Because in your world, beauty isn't just a personal project. It's a regulated affair. And tonight, the rules of attraction are dictated not by your taste, but by royal decree. Welcome to the world of sumptuary laws, the medieval fashion police in parchment form. They decide what you can wear, how much of it, what it's made of, and whether your family name earns the right to wear sleeves that trail like wedding banners. The message is clear. Your beauty must not overstep your social station. You smooth the velvet with tentative fingers. It's not yours. It belongs to your cousin, a baroness with permission to wear red. You're just borrowing it for one night, in secret, because you're tired of looking like a shadow next to the Duchess's walking jewel box of an outfit. Sumptuary laws were most aggressively enforced during the late 13th to 15th centuries, particularly in places like England, France, and Italian city-states. Mainstream historians note that they weren't just about morality, they were about control. Regulating beauty helped preserve class hierarchy. If peasants started looking too posh, how would you know who to scorn? But historians still argue whether these laws were strictly followed or mostly symbolic. Records show a lot of people breaking them, especially if they were wealthy enough to bribe officials, which, of course, defeats the whole purpose. But hypocrisy is fashion's oldest accessory. You pull the dress over your chemise and begin to lace yourself in. It's heavier than you expected. The velvet drags at your shoulders, clings to your arms like wet leaves. You look in the mirror, and your breath catches. You look expensive, but it's not just color that's policed. Your neckline, sleeve width, fur trim, even shoe length, every detail is up for scrutiny. Want to wear silk from the East? You'd better be married to someone at court. Desire gold embroidery? Hope your cousin's the king. Otherwise, back to wool, peasant. There's a ridiculous fringe case from Florence where a merchant's wife was fined for wearing more than one button of silver on each sleeve. She argued it was technically jewelry, not part of the sleeve. The court didn't care. One button too far, and suddenly you're a cautionary tale. So what do people do? They cheat, creatively. You've seen friends sew cheaper fabrics beneath outer layers of forbidden silk. Others stitch precious metals into hems, so the sparkle only flashes when they walk. One daring lady had her servant powder her velvet with chalk to dull its shine before inspections. Genius. Tragic. Hilarious. You pace slowly, getting used to the feel of the forbidden fabric. Your heart beats a little faster. It's not just the weight. It's the risk. If someone reports you, you could be fined, humiliated, even banned from court functions. But for now, you don't care. You look radiant. The way the candlelight slides across the crimson waves of your gown, it does something to you. You stand taller. You even breathe a little more deeply, corset be damned. Then your maid knocks gently and whispers the warning. The steward's making his rounds. You freeze. In your own chamber, wearing a dress that technically belongs to someone of higher rank. You rip it off with shaking hands, folding it quickly, stuffing it into the chest beneath your bed. Back into your drab gray overdress, the one that matches your place. As you sit down again, heart racing, a bitter thought creeps in. Even beauty has borders. You can strive, bleed, pluck, powder, but if you don't earn your fabrics, your glow doesn't count. And yet, beneath your boring linen, your skin still remembers the velvet. Your eyes still sparkle from the stolen moment of self-indulgence. You settle in for the night, pulling a blanket over your knees. Somewhere outside your chamber, the Duchess swishes past in full brocade. You smile softly, imagining her falling down the stairs in all that status. Just for a second, because sometimes quiet rebellion looks like a flash of red beneath gray sleeves and feels like freedom. You walk past the market stalls with your veil pulled low, pretending to browse dried figs while keeping your true purpose tucked deep in your satchel. Inside, a tiny sachet of powdered bone, labeled with looping script and a wax seal stamped in the shape of a scallop shell. It's a relic souvenir, a so-called holy cure, purchased from a returning pilgrim. Not for cold, not for pain, but for your freckles. Because in this particular beauty gospel, freckles aren't charming, they're blemishes. Marks, proof of sun, imperfection, or, if you listen to the more fire and brimstone crowd, signs of immodest thoughts. So naturally, you're trying to scrub them out of existence using saint dust. This is your introduction to the bizarre world of pilgrim remedies, where piety and personal grooming blur into something both sacred and suspicious. And in a time where you're not allowed to want beauty too openly, wrapping it in religion is a clever workaround. You unwrap the packet and read the instructions again. Mix with holy water, apply before sunrise, and repeat the Lord's Prayer while rubbing it into your skin. Easy enough, if you can get your hands on real holy water. You've been using river water and hoping it passes. Pilgrimage sites like Santiago de Compostela, Canterbury, and Mont Saint-Michel don't just sell salvation, they sell beauty. Among the crosses and rosaries are miracle balms, sainted powders, and authentic relics ground fine and ready to mix in a face paste. You know most of it's fake, but desperation does funny things to skepticism. Mainstream historians acknowledge the commercial boom in pilgrimage-related goods during the High Middle Ages. Pilgrim badges became souvenirs, but also symbols of spiritual favor. But historians still argue whether the beauty remedies sold alongside them were church-sanctioned or just opportunistic vendors cashing in on insecurity. You glance around, then quickly rub the powder on your cheeks. It stings slightly. Maybe a good sign? Or maybe it's just powdered limestone with a fancy label. Either way, you squint at your reflection in the polished surface of a vendor's kettle. Still freckled. Still you. One particularly weird folk remedy you overheard in the convent kitchen last spring? Boil 3 pilgrim scallop shells, crush the softened edges with a blessed spoon, and dab the slurry on your skin during a thunderstorm. Results guaranteed, or your sins back. And it's not just freckles people try to erase. There are potions to lift sagging skin, salves for yellowed teeth, and, believe it or not, prayers said backward, strictly forbidden, by the way, that are supposed to curl lashes or lighten hair. You don't try that one. Not yet. But some women take the risks. You know of a noble woman who lit votive candles to Saint Agnes for 30 nights straight while fasting on water and radishes, just to cure rough elbows. Another supposedly fasted from speaking altogether, hoping silence would purify her complexion. You can't confirm it worked, but her cheeks did look remarkably soft. And of course, there are the relics. Tiny bones and cloth scraps said to belong to saints, ground into powders and mixed with oil. Most are fakes. A few, maybe not. Either way, the placebo is powerful. One dab on the chin, and you feel holier. Prettier. Even if it's just crushed chicken bone and olive oil, your reflection seems smoother. Later that night, you tuck the sachet back into your satchel and light a candle. You whisper a half-hearted prayer, not for forgiveness, just for even skin tone. It feels ridiculous and comforting all at once. And yet, there's a part of you that worries. Is this vanity? Are you turning faith into skincare? The monks say beauty is a trap, but also that looking lovely brings glory to creation. It's a loop you can't escape. As you lie back on your mattress, you press your fingers to your cheek. The powder is gritty. Your freckles haven't vanished, but maybe they've softened. You whisper one last prayer, not for salvation, but for smooth skin before the next feast. Because in your world, divinity and vanity are often sprinkled from the same pilgrim pouch. You tilt your head back, teeth bared, while your maid pinches your cheeks and frowns. She doesn't say it, but the message is clear. Something in your smile looks off. And in a court where a half-second expression can be your social currency, bad teeth are no small problem. Welcome to the cruel underworld of medieval dentistry, where the goal isn't so much health as it is appearances. And tonight, you're going to scrub your teeth with powdered coral, dab your gums with vinegar, and hope to survive dinner without shame or bleeding. You reach for your tooth stick, a frayed willow twig used for cleaning between your molars. It's not the worst thing you've done for beauty. At least this one doesn't burn. Much. Tooth care in the Middle Ages wasn't entirely forgotten, contrary to the cliches. Aristocrats, those with access and anxiety, did clean their teeth. With what? Well, options included salt, ash, crushed seashells, and yes, coral powder. All abrasives, all painful, all meant to scrape away the visible sins of yesterday's wine and today's roast goose. You mix your paste carefully, crushed mint leaves, vinegar, and powdered fennel. It stings your tongue and tastes like punishment, but afterward, your breath doesn't reek of onion and anxiety. So, success? Mainstream historians have noted that dental hygiene was practiced more than we give credit for, especially among the upper classes. Manuscript from 13th century Paris mention tooth powders and breath-freshening herbs being part of noble morning rituals. But historians still argue whether these regimens were actually effective long-term or just cosmetic stopgaps between extractions. And oh, the extractions. You've seen it once. A noble woman, eyes glazed, clutching the wooden arms of her chair, while a barber surgeon yanked a molar from her jaw with iron pincers. No anesthesia, just wine and faith. Her screams echoed for days. But afterward, a cleaner smile. Worth it? Debatable. You run your tongue along your teeth. No wiggles, no sharp pain. For now. And if things start going south, there's always clove oil, a miracle by medieval standards. You dab it onto a sore tooth and feel a numbness that borders on mystical. Of course, overuse can irritate the gums and turn your mouth a faint orange. But hey, beauty demands sacrifices. Some of them taste spicy. Tonight, you're attending a banquet, which means you've also applied a touch of vinegar to your lips, hoping it'll make them look redder and help mask any lingering odor. A smile is a statement at court. Too wide, and you're vain. Too closed, and you're cold. So you've learned the art of the half smile, a delicate upturn that shows just enough teeth to say, yes, I brush sort of. There's also a bizarre fringe method floating around court, brushing with crushed pearls and honey, supposedly endorsed by an empress. You tried it once. Sticky, weird, and somehow made your teeth feel fuzzier. Never again. And of course, there's the prayer route. One nun you know swears by reciting the Psalms while biting down on a stick of blessed elder wood. She says it drives out the tooth demons. You suspect her gums just got better on their own, but the story is gaining traction anyway. You arrive at the banquet with your mouth freshly scrubbed, lips gently tinted, and teeth feeling like they've been sandpapered. You chew cautiously, avoiding the tough crust of the bread and slicing your meat into tiny bites. A man across the table grins at you, flashing 3 gold teeth and a gap where a 4th used to be. You flash your best subtle smile back. Yours may not sparkle, but they're all still there. You hope, and as the meal wears on, you take small sips of wine, careful not to stain your teeth. You excuse yourself afterward to rinse with a bit of sage water from your pouch. You spit behind a column and smile at your reflection in a pewter plate. Still clean, still respectable. Back in your chamber, you pull out your toothstick one last time before bed. A few strokes, a rinse, a prayer to Saint Apollonia, the patroness of toothaches. Just in case. You lie down with your mouth still faintly minty and your gums slightly raw. You smile in the dark, proud of your survival. Because in this world, even a smile can betray you. And you've made sure yours won't. You lower your head carefully as you pass through the arched doorway, conscious of the towering contraption balanced on your scalp. It sways slightly. A breeze from the open window makes your entire center of gravity wobble. You reach up instinctively to steady it. That's not just a hat. That's a hennin, a cone of velvet and wire. It juts nearly 2 feet into the air, tipped with a fine sheer veil trailing like smoke behind you. It's part crown, part sculpture, part open challenge to physics. But more than anything, it's a public announcement. You've arrived. The hennin is not for the shy. It's the TikTok ring light of the medieval world, designed to spotlight your face and draw every gaze in the room straight to you. It says, yes, I have wealth. Yes, I have status. And yes, my neck is strong enough to carry this symbolic lance of femininity. These headdresses gained prominence in the 15th century, particularly in Burgundy and northern France, spreading across noble courts like a glorious contagion of awkward elegance. Mainstream historians link them to court fashion under Philip the Good, where extravagance reached almost mythic levels. Some hennins even reached 36 inches tall. But historians still argue whether such extreme heights were actually worn day to day, or saved for court ceremonies and portraits. Was the hennin a real-life fixture, or just a visual flex captured in art? Either way, your neck muscles don't care. They're doing the heavy lifting. Today's style is extra elaborate. The cone wrapped in brocade, the tip wired with fine brass to hold the veil aloft, and, secret ingredient, threads of actual horsehair to give it that extra stiffness. And yes, some women weave their hennins with bits of relics or holy cloth for blessings. One duchess claimed her veil contained a thread from the robe of Saint Cecilia. You suspect it was just linen from an old altar cloth, but points for creativity. You've stuffed the base of the cone with padding and pinned it tightly under your chin. Your ears are half numb. Your scalp itches. But when you see yourself in the mirror, face framed like a holy icon, you understand the obsession. You look like art, or at least very expensive furniture. Underneath the veil, your hair is twisted into tight coils, secured with ribbons and beeswax. Sometimes women shave their hairline to ensure a cleaner line beneath the hennin. You've plucked yours enough that the effect is seamless and painful. And here's a curious detail. The hennin isn't just a fashion choice. It's a visual cue. Married women wear it at a certain angle, with a heavier veil. Unmarried ladies tilt theirs more jauntily with lighter fabric. One wrong drape, and you could accidentally flirt with a bishop. It's like medieval Tinder, but with headgear. You've even heard of a fringe practice in which a small lock of hair is threaded through a holy ring and pinned inside the hennin to ward off envy. Whether it works or not, who knows? But that ring once belonged to someone named Blessed Agnes, so it feels effective. And what a sensation it causes. When you enter the feast later that night, conversation hushes. You can feel it. All eyes on your head. Some gasp in admiration. Others scoff. You spot one rival smirking. Hers is shorter, rounder, less daring. She looks like a pastry next to your cathedral spire. But the hennin is not without hazard. You've seen women tip into fireplaces trying to sit too close. One noble woman nearly drowned when her veil caught a draft and dragged her off a pier. You walk slowly, deliberately, like a queen crossing a tightrope. And don't even think about sitting back in a chair. Your neck must remain straight, your chin slightly lifted. It's elegance by vertebrae strain. Still, there's something undeniably powerful about this towering absurdity. In a world where your voice is often soft and your choice is narrow, the hennin lets you shout without speaking. You become a silhouette, a symbol, a spectacle, all in velvet and wire. Later, as the evening winds down, a gentleman approaches you and murmurs, "That's quite a hat." You smile. That's quite an understatement. When you finally remove the hennin, hours later, your scalp throbs and your hair is crushed flat. You set it down gently in its silk-lined box like a relic. You massage your temples. You wonder how many more nights your spine can handle this crown of ambition. But as you lie in bed, veil folded neatly beside your pillow, you admit it. You already miss the way it made you feel. Because sometimes, the higher your hat, the harder they stare. You sit perfectly still, eyes cast downward, listening as the monk's voice echoes through the cloister. He's preaching about vanity, again. About how pride in one's appearance leads the soul astray. About how painted cheeks and perfumed veils are the tools of temptation, not holiness. He doesn't name names, but everyone glances your way. Of course, because even behind monastery walls, beauty is under surveillance. Tonight, the sermon's sharper than usual. The monk paces like a judge, quoting scripture with surgical precision. Charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting, he intones. A woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. You try not to fidget. Your hair is clean, your nails trimmed. Apparently, that's suspicious behavior now. Monastic backlash against beauty has been brewing for decades. Throughout Europe, sermons thunder against painted faces and scented cloths. They say vanity opens the gates to sin, that every plucked eyebrow is a dagger in the soul, that God doesn't recognize a woman hiding behind powder and silk. Mainstream historians recognize this religious tension as a key feature of medieval life. The church, especially post-12th century, becomes increasingly vocal about what a woman should and should not look like. But historians still argue whether this was motivated more by spiritual concern or a desire to control female autonomy in a world where image meant influence. Of course, the irony is unbearable. These same monks condemning beauty are often the keepers of books filled with beauty advice. Hidden in the margins of theological texts, you'll find recipes for hair tonics, skin balms, and even rose-scented breath elixirs. Yes, behind those stone walls, The brothers are brewing their own secret serums. You've heard whispers of it. A monk in Rouen who trades ink for almond oil. Another in Avignon, said to collect recipes from nuns and pilgrims, compiling an underground manual of feminine graces. He claims it's research for confessional understanding. Sure, one particularly odd tidbit: a monastic letter from the 14th century contains a holy face lotion made from rainwater collected during midnight prayers and steeped with myrrh. The writer insists it brings both spiritual clarity and heavenly pallor. You're half tempted to try it. Meanwhile, public confession becomes a theater. Women kneel, weeping about their sins. Too much rouge, too tight a gown, too many glances in the mirror. Some truly feel guilt. Others cry for appearance's sake. Either way, the church keeps score. And yet, behind closed doors, it's not so black and white. You've seen abbesses with softly perfumed habits. Heard of nuns who trade in calendula balm and beeswax creams. In some cloisters, beauty is reframed not as vanity, but stewardship, caring for God's creation. A tidy little theological loophole, but woe to the woman who draws too much admiration. A young novice with unusually bright eyes was once sent to a colder convent, far from courtly visitors. No explanation, just a warning: do not let your light become a flame. Translation: stop being beautiful. You finish your evening prayers and rise from your kneeler. Outside, the monk's voice fades as he returns to his cell. Inside, you light a small beeswax candle and open your secret pouch. Lavender oil, powdered pearl, not to tempt, but to remember who you are beneath the sermons. There's power in defiance, but subtle defiance. You can't challenge the sermons out loud, but you can apply balm to your lips after prayers. You can mix a drop of rosemary water into your hair before a feast. The monks may own your soul, but they don't own your reflection. You whisper to your reflection in the mirror: if God made roses, surely he won't fault me for wanting to smell like one. Then, ever so carefully, you line your veil with a thread of silver embroidery. It's barely noticeable, but it's yours, because even the holiest halls, beauty is a battlefield, and you're still fighting. You lean over the basin, the cool water swirling as you rinse away another layer of chalk, lead, oil, and compromise. Your reflection ripples in the surface, bare, soft, and strangely unfamiliar. No rouge, no veil, no powdered illusions. Just your skin, your eyes, your very human face. And in this quiet moment, you wonder, after everything, after leeches and whalebones and saint dust blush, have the standards really changed, or just shape-shifted? Because now, centuries later, echoes of those medieval obsessions still hum in your daily scroll. Smooth skin, poreless perfection, a jawline that could slice air. Influencers praise glass skin with the same fervor once reserved for holy pallor. High foreheads are no longer plucked. They're contoured with highlighter. Freckles, now you add them, drawn on with pencils that cost more than your entire feast budget in 1423. And you're still chasing it. That elusive moment when your reflection meets the fantasy. You dab your face with a towel, remembering the first time you stared into a warped copper mirror and thought, maybe if I just changed this one thing. Modern beauty may not come with lead or arsenic anymore, thankfully, but the expectations still press just as tightly. Your corset's been replaced with snatched waist filters. Your henning, swapped for ring lights and Instagram angles. Even your scented veil lives on in the endless spritzes of floral mists and curated perfumes with names like Holy Bloom and Temptress. Mainstream scholars agree that beauty standards have always served more than just aesthetic purposes. They're social tools, ways of asserting power, status, desirability. But historians still argue whether the modern woman is freer or simply facing a new form of invisible lace and velvet. You pull up your sleeve to check the inside of your arm. Soft, smooth, almost translucent. You think of medieval girls applying dove dung masks in candlelight, hoping to lighten the very existence of skin tone. And now, you scroll through sponsored videos promising chemical peels, vitamin-infused microneedling, or that one influencer who swears by bee venom serum. It's not so far from serpent balm. Even the blush has come full circle. Once bled for, now baked into compacts that promise the same flushed innocence, minus the leech. Progress? You sit on your bed and pick up your phone, a modern-day mirror that stays back with filtered perfection. You swipe through flawless faces, all looking vaguely the same. Same brows, same lips, same mystery veil, now digital. For a moment, you miss the honesty of the old rituals. The powdered coral scraped your gums raw. Sure, but it didn't pretend to be effortless. Now, the message is still, be beautiful, but make it look like it just happened. You pull your blanket up, letting the soft fabric swallow your arms. You whisper one last cheeky prayer to the saint of skincare, Saint Apollonia for your smile, Saint Agnes for your glow. And tomorrow, you'll probably moisturize and highlight and apply some illusion again. Not because you have to, but because there's still something thrilling, something ancient, about crafting your own reflection, about owning the ritual, about controlling the myth, just a little. You smile at your reflection in the glass. Still here, still surviving, still beautiful. The candle's almost out now, a lazy flicker painting golden ripples across the ceiling. You're lying still, the weight of the story settling over you like a soft velvet cloak. Your breath slows. Your limbs begin to melt into the mattress. You made it, through plucked hairlines, perfumed veils, and powdered lies. Through bloodletting blushes and towering hennons. Through whispers behind cloistered doors and rules written in royal ink. Every impossible standard, every ritual of transformation, every quiet defiance, they all brought you here. To now. And now, you rest. Let your forehead relax. High or low, doesn't matter anymore. Let your cheeks soften, colorless and calm. Let your breath deepen, not tight-laced, not shallow, but full, slow, and safe. The kind of breath no court would dare to judge. The world beyond your window is quiet. No sermons, no glances, no polished copper mirrors bending you out of shape. Just you, warm and real beneath your blanket, your thoughts slowing with every blink. The flicker of the past fades gently into the hush of the present. You don't have to be beautiful, hey. You just have to be. The last candle dies out. Darkness tucks itself around you like a secret. And somewhere deep in your dreaming mind, maybe you'll see a girl in a stone tower, her cheeks bare, her veil undone, smiling in the moonlight. And she'll look just like you.